We are not ramping down. We're just getting started. Nothing stops this train. Nothing.
Shout out to Liz Alden for coining that clip, and of course Walter White, and that's reference to the debt. So we're going to break this down and how Bitcoin is the only savior you can latch on to. So stay tuned.
Bitcoin is booming. Are you cashing in or missing out? At Drip2BTC, we're rewriting the rules of Bitcoin investing. Earn up to 30% ROI on your deposits, unlock incredible Bitcoin discounts, and transform credit into up to 3,000% APR growth. No hassle, just real results. Don't wait, your future is one deposit away. Drip2BTC.com. Invest smart today.
Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here with Drip and Farm for Poverty, where we don't trust, we verify, and operate with integrity and transparency. You may have seen Lynn used this quote, or you may have seen it clipped out in various places on X, reference what's going on with our financial markets, financial system. And I just want to play that clip where it originated from. If you haven't seen Breaking Bad, that's where this comes from. It's Walter White. And it's reference to the debt and how there is no escaping it. Like, nothing stops this train. It is just on a spiral towards endless money printing. They are, shout out to what's going on right now with the administration. I think Elon has basically tapped out and said that there's nothing he can do to save enough money. And also Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent mentioned that, they have to basically ramp up GDP. So they need to produce more, and kind of that's the way that they will offset this. So that is a possibility, that it is the only option, to put it that way. If that works or will take place, I doubt it. There's just too much bureaucracy in place, and too many people with their hand in the cookie jar that want to just spend. And we don't have the middle class or infrastructure in place to make up that deficit, with the aging population, all this stuff. So this is just the inevitable outcome, in my opinion. But regardless of what happens, even if by some wing and a prayer, they do find a way to balance the budget and stop the inflating of the money and the outrageous debt spiral that we're in, Bitcoin's a solution. And on the other hand, if nothing stops this train and it does continue, then Bitcoin's still the solution. So got a couple clips that came from Lynn that I want to play, and then one from Sam Callahan about kind of a 5-6 step process or road markers that you can see that are already in place to let you know that this is the inevitable outcome.
I still feel like neither candidate really addressed the elephant in the room, which is the $200 trillion of unfunded liabilities and how we're really going to sustain all this debt. All paths lead to the money printer. It worries me and makes me a little bit bearish because I just don't know how this can play out. I had Mark Moss on and he was saying, we will crash, but we'll crash up because they're going to have to print. But it's like that makes me concerned about hyperinflation. So it seems like on the one end is this deflationary bust, depression scenario, which they obviously can't afford and won't allow. They have to go in and print, but how long can they really print? The end result is more asset inflation that crushes the middle class, and the average person, the working person's quality of life is deteriorating. I mean, obviously Bitcoin is the life raft, but not enough people understand that, and that makes me worried. It makes me worried that they would call for draconian things and maybe even be against Bitcoin because people are so scared in that type of scenario. I still feel like
I find that interesting because, like, for me, I guess because I have cut the umbilical cord of living in the US and the disrupted middle class that is missing. So I found my upper middle class sustainability by living overseas. And I know that's not a possibility for a bunch of for most people, but I guess I'm not as worried as Natalie expresses in here, because it's like the writing's on the wall, and if you don't do anything about it, then unfortunately that is on you. You cannot rely on someone else to dictate your financial stability, your future. So, especially if you're watching this content, then you should know that Bitcoin is the life raft out of this. And if you choose to not get into it like you should, and you're still thinking that, there's a way out somewhere else within the existing monetary system and government support, well, you'll have to unfortunately be sadly mistaken and find out the hard way. So I'm personally kind of in a strange sort of way looking forward to it. So seeing Bitcoin get more and more dominant, seeing the buying power of Satoshis get more and more dominant, and what it will afford me in other countries, So as Lynn said, nothing stops this train, and I'm kind of actually looking forward to the train running away, because I see the paradise destination that it's going towards, where it does get stopped by Bitcoin. And if you have those Satoshis to get on the train going to that destination, it's gonna be a fun ride.
In the coming months, probably see some rate cuts, no emergency cuts unless something really deteriorates. Something has to hit those core markets to do some sort of kind of either liquidity addition or, rate changes. And I think that in the future, the balance sheet might be as big of a component of all this as the interest rates. If you look at Egypt's, base money, it's like high inflation. Look at their base money, it's going up substantially. It's hard to get the wheels to slow down there. And I think the United States could find itself in a similar situation in the years ahead, where the deficits are too big. The more they raise rates, the more it blows out the deficit, which they end up partially having to buy. And so their overall ability to put out fire starts to get worse. It's kind of like putting a kitchen fire out with water. It doesn't really work, ironically. I think that they could find themselves in that situation.
Does anything stop that train?
Nothing stops that train. And part of why that's the case.
So ironically, Lynn comes from kind of a macro environment. She's also expressed feedback on other countries that have seen hyperinflation. I'm not educated enough to even have an opinion on the hyperinflation narrative for the US, but I just don't feel like we would get there as the global reserve currency. I feel like something else would get ushered in. Like I said, I feel like it would be the perfect opportunity. Maybe I guess that is draconian in the way that Natalie said, but CBDCs or something would kind of course correct the ship so that we wouldn't see hyperinflation, and they would be able to dress it up, put lipstick on a pig. So I guess on the one hand, it's still definitely doom and gloom, but those with their head in the sand wouldn't be any much the wiser on what that pivot would entail for them in regards to control and a different level of control. So we already know the existing fiat handcuffs and the controls that comes with that, and CBDCs would just be 10x that level of control and surveillance. And I think it will actually start with probably USDC, since that's already kind of a regulated stablecoin, as well as some of these other ones that are rolling out. Who knows? So it is the inevitable outcome, but I guess it just depends on what type of rose-colored glasses you have on to see it. And here's the last one I was talking about by Sam Callahan. So he's like, the first signpost, Doge failed to reduce the deficit. So this was recently Elon basically saying he's got to go back to keep an eye on his existing businesses, and that he pretty much has accepted defeat, that there is not enough cutting that he can do to save enough money. And even Scott Bessent mentioned the same thing, that they could get this $2 trillion amount that he forecasted if they are willing to add up 200 billion over the course of the next 10 years and compound it. But that is not the ticket they sold us initially about, cutting spending by 2 trillion. So he found out that there's just too much spending and too much bureaucracy, that there's nothing else he can do. So he's stepping out of that, and basically, he's failed. Second signpost, pushing the SLR changes to boost demand for treasuries from domestic banks. So I showed you guys that with Jack Mallers, how the supplementary leverage ratio will allow banks to have essentially unlimited buying power, about $4 to $5 trillion worth of capital they can inject into the bond market. Third signpost, pushing for legislation to boost demand for treasuries from stablecoin users. So we saw this as well already taking place, that banks will basically be able to create their own stablecoin. So you'll have domestic banks being able to do leverage on bonds. Once they have all that bond leverage, then they'll be able to tie stablecoins to that. So that will amplify the 4 to 5 trillion to maybe, 8 to 10 trillion. So we'll see a JP Morgan stablecoin. We'll see a Chase coin. We'll see a Bank of America, Wells Fargo stablecoin. So let's look at this real quick. How many stables are already out? All right, over on Coin Market Cap, we got, does it give me a total? It gives me the rank. 27 stable coins that are out here. Wow, BUSD still hanging in there. Sad what happened to them. Tether, USDC, First Digital, PayPal's through. So these top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are tied to the dollar. And we got 2 euro, and we got more dollar again. So I think that we will see a lot more of these, but you can already see that nothing comes close to Tether. So you got Tether and USDC. So USDC is half, a little more than, less than half. And then the next is 1.6 billion compared to 61. So it's a 50x difference in volume or supply dollars, because it's all tied to dollars. They're the third largest stablecoin issuer. So that's crazy. So we'll see where these next ones pop up at. But all that means is money printer go burr, in the sense that there's going to be just more liquidity sloshing around. Fourth signpost, new spending bill estimated to increase deficit by 33% by 2027. So I think this is the big, beautiful bill. And it basically also undid all the hard work that Elon just did. So it's like, I mentioned this before on my show here, is that politicians all just want to get reelected. And nobody gets reelected by getting their paychecks cut. So you come in talking big and tough, and then this is injected because by the midterms, they got to have something positive in people's pockets so that they feel like, yeah, I got richer. You can come on back in office again. That's all it really is. That's the bureaucracy, the red tape again. And fifth signpost, Besant will grow GDP faster than the debt to stabilize debt to GDP. So this is what I was talking about with the Lynn Alden, or maybe my last video, I can't remember. But that is the only way out of this, or to at least quote unquote stabilize it. They have to grow the GDP. And this is also in the Wrap Out Everything code, that this can grow due to what AI is offering. So it's like infinite scalable labor, or fractions on dollar compared to what you have to pay an aging labor force. So it's not the end of the world for sure. And them looking at this as kind of the next step is the right and smart move, in my humble opinion. TLDR, keep spending, pass new laws and tweak regulations to suppress long end yields, boost nominal GDP, mostly via inflation, debase the currency, bondholders and cash savers lose in real terms. Got Bitcoin. So yeah, if you're going to be holding bonds or holding cash, cash is trash, as Warren Buffett said, you will miss out. So that's why I said in the beginning of this, that to me, this is not all doom and gloom. If you're watching this video, then you have been orange pilled already. And all this should do is give you more conviction on buying more and more Bitcoin. That's it, because that is the only way out. And if you can, get out of the US and find you a nice different country to live in, where your, not only your dollars that you're currently getting go further, but so will your Bitcoin. All right, smash that HBO special, help brother out, like, subscribe, comment down below. And until next time, live daily and achieve your impossible.